participants to keep putting them in the chat so that we can take them along. And this meeting would be recorded as well as live streamed. So having placed those house rules, I would like to continue. And water is a very important issue for the apparel and textile sector. The footprint that the sector has, both in terms of consumption as well as the wastewater, makes it very, very important that this issue is looked at it in a very strategic manner. And there are various aspects, as costs of the input water are going up, as there is more awareness and call for action on addressing water pollution, as water scarcity is looming. There are various facets from which this needs to be looked at. And we are pleased to have with us a very eclectic, lineup of speakers and panelists who can bring different perspectives, because if one thing that is clear to us is that this is a conversation of different stakeholders. There is a need for close conversation. There is a need for collaboration. And now is also the time for action. So I think the challenges are understood, but what we would like to focus on is that how can we move ahead on this path and what is it that needs to be done? So with that in mind, and also because we have a fairly packed agenda, I would like to invite our CEO, Mr. Rijit Sengupta, to please welcome everyone and deliver the opening remarks. Rijit, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Devyani, and good afternoon to all of you. Thanks a lot for joining us for this very important event. And looking at the number of people who've joined, really grateful that you are able to join us in spite of the challenging times that we are in. So that also demonstrates the importance of the subject and the interest among the stakeholders. So my name is Rijit, as Devyani pointed out, and I lead the work of the Center for Responsible Business. At the Center for Responsible Business, the work that we do, the mandate that we have is to promote sustainability and promote sustainable business and see how businesses integrate sustainability into their core. And as you can imagine, this is an extremely complex mandate and difficult because when you are talking about sustainability, especially in a country like India, one has to highlight that there is this need for balancing these three components of sustainability, the economic sustainability, the social sustainability, and the environmental sustainability as well. The sector or water presents really an extremely interesting case when you look at how this need is manifested in this sector and how there is a need and it is critical to strike the right balance between these three elements of sustainability. And in doing so, one has to realize and recognize that there are often trade-offs and compromises that need to be made. And I think some of these points will also be highlighted in our experience in this project. When you talk about water, there is this need for industry, as Devyani was mentioning, to produce, and therefore, using water as an input from the economic side. On a societal angle, water, access to water and availability of good quality water is often also looked at as a right for people. It's a common property. And on the environmental side, it is about the nature of the resource. Water, where does it originate, the catchment, the watershed, so on and so forth. So it's always trying to strike this balance and creating and looking at the trade-offs. So that's the challenge really in the water sector, and that's the challenge I think Devyani and colleagues were confronted with when we were looking at this project. Given that we are a solution providing organization, or at least an organization that tries to highlight the solutions, there are 2 points that I'd like to put on the table, and I think this is also will also be highlighted as we move forward, especially from the perspective of looking at water and wastewater, the subject of today. The first is to look at water from within the framework of circular economy or resource efficiency, and advocate of the need for looking at water use efficiency as a critical component of promoting circular business models and circular strategies or resource efficient strategies in specific sectors. And textile sector is an important sector because of the amount of water that is used in the textile sector. So one is trying to highlight the importance of being more water efficient, recycling and reusing water, and starting right from the design stage in the sector. The second, and this is also something that I know would be talked about in the later part of our conversation, when we look at solutions, the process of finding solutions is also critical to ensure the longevity of the solutions or the impact. And as an organization, we've been promoting the importance of collaborative solutions or co-designed solutions, which are one long-term and also takes into consideration the interest of all the stakeholders. So I'm glad that Devyani highlighted this issue about about the importance of engaging stakeholders. So it's not just engaging, but also giving them the opportunity to design solutions for themselves at a local level, leveraging the international or national experiences, etc. So again, another issue which I know that would be talked about. We have our colleague from the India Water Stewardship Network, a collaborative platform that looks at promoting collaboration across stakeholders at the basin or at the watershed level. So I think these are some of the areas which we need to move both policy and practice in order to highlight and probably even start to think a little outside of the box when we talk about solutions to water and wastewater. So I think, Devyani, with these points, I'd like to pause here and really keen to hear the thoughts of the experts and the practitioners, including Secretary from the Ministry of Water Resources. So over to you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you for those opening remarks and putting the very important aspect of multi-stakeholder collaboration and circularity, that, it starts right from the design stage. And I think that's something that we will touch upon later. Now, we're pleased because we have the Water Management Forum under the aegis of the Institution of Engineers of India and Alliance for Water Stewardship partnering with us for this workshop. And their support means a lot, because here we are then combining our efforts and moving ahead and reaching out with stakeholders to take action forward. And we are absolutely delighted that the president of, the Institution of Engineers India has joined us today, Mr. Narendra Singh. And, I would request him, I will introduce Narendra ji, and I would request him because he has so much experience and his support means so much, brings so much strength to this workshop and organization. I would just like to take a few moments to introduce Narendra ji and then invite him to deliver some opening remarks to the participants. So Narendra Singh ji, President of the Institution of Engineers India, has a long-standing contribution to the institution as well as the engineering profession. He is the founder chairman of Uttarakhand State Center and is credited with the construction of a modern building for the center in cooperation with the government of Uttarakhand and PSUs. He has a degree in civil engineering from MNNIT Allahabad and post-graduation in irrigation and Hydro University of Roorkee, and has served government of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand Irrigation Department and has a vast experience in project implementation, including both small and medium scale hydro projects as well as major hydraulic structures. He was instrumental in the rehabilitation of rural and urban families which were affected by the construction of the 1,000 megawatt Tehri Dam, and has also titled the book Rehabilitation and Resettlement, Tehri Dam and Other Major Hydropower Projects in India, An Approach to the Future. He is recipient of many awards for his contribution to the profession, as well as for his involvement in social causes and community development. He is actively involved in various professional bodies and had been the executive member of All India Engineers Federation and member of National Institute of Hydrology as a life member. So, sir, over to you. A few remarks from you, sir. Thank you. Sir, if I can request to unmute yourself, Narendra ji. Yes.
Okay, now audible? Now,
yes, sir. It is
good
audible.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my proud privilege to welcome Rajit Sengupta, CEO, CRB. Ramanuj Mitraji, Program Coordinator, Speaker from Textile Industries, eminent panelist, Dr. Ramji, Mrs. Archana Gupta, Dattaji, and other, my friend Vivek Kapadia ji, Jhala ji, Solanki ji, Pathan ji, and many others, keynote speakers as well as stockholders. I welcome you all on this occasion, wastewater, reuse, and national conservation in textile industry. Actually, this is a very relevant workshop which you have organized today, but I'm not to the degree and the business having with this reuse, recycle of water. But even then, I have got some experience I will share with you. Friends, Water Management Fora is one of the autonomous organ of Institution of Engineers India, which is as you are well aware, that Institution of Engineers is a largest professional body of engineers in India, which was established in 1920 and was coveted with Royal Charter in 1935. The members attached to this institution are known as charter engineer. It has corporate membership more than 3.5 lakhs and non-corporate members about 5 lakhs, which provide a wide range of technical and other professional services to the government, industries, and academia. Through its 125 centers located in India and 6 overseas chapters. II represent India in 33 numbers world engineering organizations and also established 6 forums in prime locations of India as its social obligation. The effort of Institution of Engineers India is always been to keep its members informed about the latest engineering and technical developments occurring in national and international arena by conducting technical events involving in eminent professionals and practitioners. Over last 100 years, II has provided valuable suggestions as well as policy inputs to the policymakers and contributing into the national growth. II conducts webinars, seminars, lectures, and technical workshops on contemporary subjects, sharing the knowledge of our members and other professionals of the trade attached to this institution. II has conducted about 60 webinars during the pandemic time with the participation of wide range of professionals. Nowadays, we are facing tough time due to COVID-2 pandemic, tough conditions. Our country is facing very difficulty nowadays, and our government has taken lead together. Our engineers of this country, together with scientists and medical professionals, has found the probable solution to this complex problem. I am proud to say that more than 200 papers have been received to resolve this complex problem. Overall, coming to this problem of today workshop, cleaning, I will share you a practical theory, you can say, cleaning of river Ganga. River Ganga, as you know, is a very holy river of Hindus and one of the big national river in India. Ganga starts its journey from Gomukh, a glacier 20 kilometers ahead to Gangotri. After traveling 3 hilly districts, it reaches to the Rishikesh in the plain area. After covering journey of 5 states, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, and West Bengal, Ganga reaches to Ganga Sagar in Bay of Bengal. High pollution level starts from Rishikesh, where a STP of 10 MLD was made at Pashulok to take the municipal waste in, and some discharges, and which was after treating through the STP. This treated water was again was connected into river Ganga again, but it was not a complete removal of this problem. In 2014, under the National Mission of Ganga, Clean Ganga, a project of 2,000 crore was launched by Government of India. The objective of this project was to make Namami Ganga. Namami Ganga means free all of pollution and conservation and rejuvenation of holy river Ganga. Under this program, 100% coverage of municipal and industrial sewerage and to treat the sugar factory water, some STPs were taken up. The project taken up in Hardwar, where 3 projects have been, 3 STPs has been installed new at Hardwar. One is Jagjitpur, 120 MLD capacity, and another is Sarai village, 40 MLD capacity, and third one is the Shivalik Nagar, which is 7 MLD. These projects has come under this program National Mission Cleaning of River Ganga. Actually, this Jagjitpur STP 120 MLD has been constructed and completed, and you will wonder to know that the treated water from this STP is carried out through the pipeline to the irrigation channels and miners there in the area, taking a 11-kilometer pipeline to the area of irrigated, and this water is reached to the fields of the cultivators. They are growing much crops nowadays, and the treated water is very useful for the agriculture purpose, which has been utilized this time. And the farmers are very much happy, and they are paying moreover revenue for this water also. 80 rupees per bigha per year. We have fixed the charges. They are giving very humbly. They take 2 or 3 waters from river Ganga and one and 2 waters from this STP. So mixed water is used for irrigation. The crop pattern are also been changed this area. You are getting the cash crop of sugarcane and popular tree plantation has come to this area. These vegetables have been grown in this area in much capacity. Regarding the crops, wheat and rice are also growing. Some pattern has been changed by this Jagjitpur 120 MLD plant, which has been set up last year and started functioning. Similar way, I told 140 MLD plant has been set up in village Sarai. Sarai is downstream to the village township Jabalapur, carries municipal waste, which takes to the Sarai village. 40 MLD plant has been, and similar way, the same experiment has been taken up here. The treated water is taken to the miners, channels, and goals of irrigation department. In coordination with the irrigation department, this treated water is also used for farming, and farmers are very happy, and they are getting more crops by mixing of this sewage water. So sewage sludge along with this sewage treated water are much useful for growth of their you can say crops. The third one, the second one, Sarai, I belongs to, actually I want to say that I also belong from Haridwar downstream of Haridwar. My village and my farms are also being irrigated by this treated water of this Sarai STP. We are getting 2 waters of this treated water to our crops nowadays. So this is going on. This is a very practical solution which we are using. This way, the Ganga Rejuvenation scheme has also adopted similar pattern for other cities along River Ganga. I told you earlier that there are 3 STP have been set up in Haridwar area. First was Jagjitpur 120 and second one Sarain 40 and third one is also Shivalik Nagar. Shivalik Nagar is the Nagar. It is a big industrial area in Uttarakhand. Shivalik Nagar is in adjacent to Haridwar and is this is industrial area. Purely industrial waste is taken through this STP and it is likely to be completed up to next year positively. And this treated industrial water will also be used for agriculture. But the farmer has refused. They are taking a movement against this water. They want that this has got high potential chemicals and we will not allow this water to be used for irrigation purposes. Government is thinking another proposal. Now this water has been dropped into a Sukhi river. It is a seasonal river and which carries this water and it is ponded ahead beyond village Dinarpur and 8 to 10 kilometers in a seasonal river which is known Sukhi river. This way 3 projects STP has been put up in Haridwar area. The similar way Kanpur and other city, Prayag and other near Ganga, the same type of project are being set up on PPP mode. They are bringing that earning will also come and they will segregate this industrial waste from the municipal waste. So this is the going. With these few words, I conclude my speech and I can give the idea. You can come and see how we are working, how this Uttarakhand government working over these projects, and they are very successful. And it is only cleaning Ganga and using the water of treated water for farming. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing that experience. I think you touched upon a few very key things. You talked about awareness and knowledge sharing. That is definitely needed. You also talked about, the reuse of water. So not only are we controlling the pollution, but also reuse. But I think you also touched upon keeping all the stakeholders engaged, because if the farmers are not going to use the water for irrigation, then, also speaking to all the stakeholders, I think that was an important perspective that you brought in. So thank you so much. And I see that.
Listen to me. One thing more. I want to say one thing more. 2 departments of the government have joined hands together. One is the public health department and another one is the irrigation department. 2 major departments come closer to and resolve this problem.
Sure.
That is it.
Okay. So yes, and I think that collaboration is key if we are looking for solutions that are long-term. So thank you so much. And I'm delighted to share that Shri U.P. Singh, Secretary of Ministry of Textiles, has joined us as well. So I had the pleasure of listening to Sir, a few weeks back at a webinar for launch of a sustainable textile cluster. And it was very heartening to see, the way he got into the heart of the matter with regards to wastewater. Actually, you had given the example of wastewater and you had talked about data. So we are delighted to have you with us, sir. And it would, we would like you to deliver the keynote address. But if you just allow me, sir, a few moments, I would like to share just in 2 to 3 minutes for everyone's benefit and to set the context, a few learnings, a few messages that we are hearing from the stakeholders as part of this project. So this is a project, sir, that has been done, it has been sponsored by an organization called Purpose Climate Lab, and it looks at the establishment of a refashion hub. And the idea really was, we started off with that, how can we look at better wastewater management in the apparel and textile sector? Can we look at greater reuse? And we spoke to stakeholders across 4 locations. We spoke in Ahmedabad, Surat, we spoke in Bangalore, we spoke in Ludhiana, and we spoke in the Nagpur, Solapur region. And I'm not going to get into the details of the project. There were some common learnings, but there are some, when we are looking at the whole issue of water, there is definitely an increasing interest. There are trends, there are certain developments which is making it of interest to the industry. There is, a willingness to collaborate and open. But if we are looking at taking forward the conversation on water, so I think first and foremost was that current and updated data is something that will underpin any intervention that is looked at in water, because it is sporadic, it is different in different locations, it is different across different players, it may be available at cluster level or may not be available, and any kind of intervention will require very up-to-date and current data to really look at meaningful interventions. Then there is a need for holistic approach. We started with wastewater management. We started looking at this one, that what is happening, and we realized that a lot of units are, releasing the treated water with some treatment into the CETPs. But then this is a much larger conversation, right? This is a conversation which one starts, where are you sourcing the water? How much are we using? How are we using it? How much are we releasing? Are we treating it? Not being able to treat it properly? And also, if we are in clusters, right, it is not just the conversation of one particular sector. All the people, all the units around, all the industries around probably need to work together if they are looking at wastewater management. And we also need to look at the value chain approach, and this is increasingly being adopted by brands and large buyers, that it's not just their own operations, but how do they look at the water footprint in value chain approach. So water stewardship is something that is gaining interest. Industry benchmarks. Can we have an aspiration to move towards certain benchmarks, right? We find that different units with similar operations may have different water consumption. Can we move towards an accepted benchmark? But I think it is important to realize that this is a journey, this is a transition. Any move towards benchmarks would also mean that there is adequate support with technology, with finance, with handholding, awareness, which is very critical when we look at this journey. We saw this with energy. We saw this when energy programs were rolled out. Can we look at something for water as well? And just based on data, based on benchmarks, we also heard that, can we look at, because wastewater out of the textile sector is perhaps one of the most difficult to handle and treat because of the heterogeneity of the wastewater. Can we look at clustering units with similar wastewater profiles? Then I think this, we always hear focus solutions for SMEs. Now, what we found when we spoke, large units do have, either ZLD or treatment plants because they are able to afford it, or they, it is a requirement by their buyers. So there is a lot more focus. SMEs will need handholding, common infrastructure perhaps will need to be looked at much more stronger. And even if we look at water programs, if we look at water audits, there is support that will need to be extended. Can we leverage on existing schemes? Can we look at awareness programs for SMEs? We look at existing schemes because, one feedback we heard that perhaps the existing schemes can apply the lens of water efficient technology as well to, provide more incentives for water efficiency. And, we can look at awareness programs. I mean, this is a point Narendraji also talked about and we're hearing. So there are a lot of small steps that have started. There are cleaner chemicals, there are more water efficient technology, there's machinery that's consuming less water, but this is in pockets, this is in isolation. Can we create more awareness about the benefits, about the business case, about moving to a more water efficient model? And, again, interministerial collaboration and coordination would be required because of the various aspects, whether you're talking about pollution control boards or groundwater authorities. But we are talking about the apparel and textile sector and the sustainability of this sector. So can Ministry of Textiles perhaps look at a sustainable roadmap for the sector with consultation and collaboration with other ministries? Because I think that will become key to looking at the productivity and efficiency of the sector as well. So while there are other details, we just wanted to take a few moments to place these points for consideration. We, some of these points will also get highlighted when we speak to the speakers in the panel. So that is something that we wanted to put for you. See if I can request you to take off the slide. So now I would like to, I'll just take this opportunity to introduce UP Singh ji to the audience here. And it would be great if, sir, you can say a few words to everyone here. So just before we start, Shri UP Singh, Secretary of Ministry of Textiles, is a 1985 batch Indian Administrative Service Officer of the Odisha cadre. He did his BTech and MTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Kanpur, and has held important assignments in both central and state governments. Prior to his current role, he held the position of Secretary in the Ministry of Water Resources and River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation since 2017. And before that, he was holding the post of Additional Secretary. He has also held the post of Mission Director, National Water Mission, and later assumed the charge of Director General, National Mission for Cleaning Ganga in 2016. And prior to joining the Ministry for Water Resources, he worked as Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. His interests and hobbies include traveling, Hindi literature, music, and gardening. So, sir, thank you so much for joining us. Over to you, sir.
Very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much for organizing this very important webinar and giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts actually. Frankly speaking, I have been talking on water and wastewater for the last 5 years, actually. Even though textiles I have joined recently, maybe 3 months back. I first joined Ministry of, then it was called Ministry of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation, which is now called Ministry of Jal Shakti, way back in June 2016, actually. And since June 2016 until recently, I was earlier Additional Secretary in the ministry. Then when the National Mission for Clean Ganga was formed into an authority on 7th October 2016 actually. So I joined Director General National Mission for Clean Ganga on 1st December 2016, and my first job was to basically notify it as an authority. In fact, the projects which Narendra ji was talking were one of the first few projects which I sanctioned when I took over as Director General of National Mission for Clean Ganga. And then, as has just now been told, I took over as Secretary, Ministry of Jal Shakti, then again Ministry of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation on way back 1st December 2017. And then I continued for a little more than 3 years as Secretary, Ministry of Jal Shakti. I was also additionally looking after for 5 months or so, Secretary of Drinking Water and Sanitation, under which Jal Jeevan Mission, Har Ghar Nal Ka Jal scheme is being implemented actually. And so almost for the 5 years, I have been talking of water and wastewater actually. And this is a topic on which I generally don't refer to any paper, or maybe given an opportunity, I would like to speak for maybe a half an hour, but I'll try to be short actually. Because what I have felt is there are a lot of things relating to water. First of all, water or wastewater. The first is that our knowledge about water and wastewater, in my opinion, needs a lot to be improved actually. I remember when in 2016, whenever I have to speak like a webinar on this, I will start that India is a water-stressed country, and then we will bring all kinds of those Faulkner marks and say how our per capita availability of water has been going down. At the time of independence, we have more than 5,000 meter cube per person per year water available, which has come down to something like 1,400 right now, and how we are going to become water scarce and blah, blah, and all. We also used to talk of that we have world's only 4% fresh water available, whereas we have 18% of world population to cater to, about 17% of world's cattle population to cater to. And then we also talked about how our rainfall, monsoon, how in India rainfall distribution is very erratic, very not only over time, but as a space also. So a spatial and temporal variability of water. Then, of course, finally, I always used to talk about the impact of climate change and how rainfall pattern is changing. While the total rainfall remains same, its distribution over time and space is becoming more and more skewed, more and more weird actually. And with consequential results that we have more frequent extreme events like floods and droughts, both higher amplitude as well as higher frequency. All that is true. But maybe towards my later days, I used to start that India is a water surplus country. I always used to say that how can a country which gets a more than 1,000 millimeter of rainfall could be a water stressed country actually. There are countries, everybody talks of Israel. Let me not talk of Israel, which manages with 300 or 200 or 400 millimeters of rainfall. There are umpteen number of examples in India where everybody talks of, let's say, Hibre Bazaar in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. They don't get more than 400 and 450 millimeters of rainfall, and they have absolutely no scarcity of water. So what is important is not so much of water availability, but it's a water management actually. Then also I used to talk that water management, we have been talking all the time about supply side management of water. We haven't talked much about the demand side management of water. And in supply side management of water also, we have been talking mostly in terms of storages. What storages? We will talk in terms of big dams. I do not want to get into that controversy whether there are two groups of people. For some people, dams which at one point of time the then Prime Minister described as temples of modern India. So there are one set of people who thinks that without big dams, without big storages, India water security cannot be ensured. But there are people who say the dams. And there is a movement in the West also to kind of remove some of the dams actually. I'm not getting into that picture, but my point is that why only way to store water should be basically the big dams? Why should the water from a huge area be collected at one place? And then why can't it be do it in a very decentralized manner? Because rainfall takes place everywhere. Every roof is a kind of a storage. In fact, once a minister there, who is still the minister there, Mr. Shekhawat. So Mr. Shekhawat was once making a presentation to all the members of parliament. And then he asked one question, that tell me which is the largest storage structure. And then members of parliament were saying different. Somebody says Hirakud Dam, somebody says Bhakra Nangal Dam, someone said Sardar Sarovar Dam. And then our minister said that no, largest storage is basically the groundwater, in the sense that all the large dams, and mind you, India has third highest number of large dams, what is defined. After China and USA, India is the one which has more than 5,500 large dams. And all the dams put together do not store as much water as basically stored beneath the ground. So the groundwater, for example, again, if I start talking about the groundwater, because groundwater is something which doesn't get people's attention actually, because it is not visible. You see a dam from a distance, you see a canal water flowing, you do not see the water which is stored underground actually. So we don't give due importance to groundwater, but the fact remains that 60% of total irrigation needs are met from the groundwater. Almost 80%, 90% of the rural areas water requirements is met from the drinking water requirement is met from the groundwater. Even in cities and even for the industries, 50% of water requirement is met from the groundwater. So one is that we tried to focus not only on large dams as supply side management, but a large number of small structures, be it farm ponds, be it tanks, be it ponds. India had a very a great tradition of these kind of things. But unfortunately, over the period of time, we forgot all those. Those structures are so important actually. So that was one part. The other is demand side management. How many of us, Devaniji perhaps was mentioning about the way we say electricity. Of course, then there are many things which are related actually. Also related because you want to, I switch off my air conditioner in the night because I will have to pay more electricity actually. I don't have a similar kind of incentive to economize on my water actually. A farmer in a Punjab, he just puts his electric motor on because he has to neither pay for electricity charges nor he has paid for the water charges actually. So he doesn't have any incentive. So there are a lot of things on policy side, but demand side management. Not many people. In fact, once I was saying, and when I said that what is the water footprint for a cup of coffee which we take in the morning, and the water footprint for one cup of coffee which we take in the morning is something like 160 liters actually. If someone asks that, suppose, let's say someone wears, in fact, a pair of jeans, how much water is consumed in making that a pair of jeans? Not many people understand. Not many people speak of it. Maybe some of you who are here who deal with this subject, but my point is that when you talk of water footprints, it is not understood the way, let's say, a carbon footprint is understood actually. So there is a need lot to educate people on demand side management rather than only on supply side management. The other thing, we started a scheme called Atal Bhujal Yojana. Atal Bhujal Yojana was basically had two major things. It was, of course, groundwater, but one was participatory groundwater management. We have never basically involved the community properly for water management. Why should? There is not much of a science involved in measuring how much rainfall we get, how much rainfall we use. Then there is a concept called, see, every village, even in the villages, has a concept of, let's say, some kind of a budget. Officially, non-officially, how much income I am earning, how much I am spending. So similarly, there is no reason why every village shouldn't have a water budget actually. How much water I am getting and how much water I am spending. And if it is a deficit budget, then either we have to increase the income or we have to reduce the expenditure. So it's as simple actually. And if you have a deficit budget, then what you call a water security plan. And water security plan will consist of both supply side and management and demand side management. So one is that. Then even take the case of, since Narenji mentioned in detail about the Ganga rejuvenation, I don't call it a Ganga cleaning. It should be more of it's not a river cleaning. It should be basically a word should be a river rejuvenation actually. Then when I joined and found way back in 2016, that people talked about more when you talk of a National Mission for Clean Ganga, they will talk in terms of constructing a ghats or constructing a crematoria or some such thing actually. Not many people talked about basically a wastewater management, whether it's a municipal wastewater management or whether it's a industrial wastewater management. And even in municipal wastewater management, one thing everybody forgot. I always say, in fact, whenever I had to speak about the Ganga rejuvenation project, I used to say that it's like a story of 7 blind men and the elephant. I think all of you must have read it. That we also read it in our school days. Maybe you might have read it in English. I read it in Hindi. That how 7 blind men, when they touched an elephant, they describe elephant the way they perceived actually. Someone who touched the feet of an elephant, for him, elephant was like a trunk or it was like a tree. So similar kind of people describe. So same thing I found about the Ganga. Everybody was, even someone was talking of maybe even sewage management or industrial effluent management. But what is important for a river rejuvenation is basically a flow in the river. The availability of water in a river. River is that which flows. Something which does not flow is not a river. So by that stretch, by that definition, Yamuna in Delhi for 8 months is not a river because there is no water. We do not allow any water to flow downstream of Wazirabad barrage. What flows is basically a treated or untreated sewage from Delhi actually. So availability of water is an extremely important. Not many people understood when even I read, I said, what has the river rejuvenation to do with the groundwater? Then I learned that water which comes in a lean season. See, in a monsoon season, every river has a lot of water actually. Rivers are in spate. But soon after monsoon season, most of the rivers get dry. Now, where we used to get, let's say, what we call a base flow or a lean season flow in the river, it used to be from the water which used to be stored in the underground aquifers. Now we have overexploited water so much, both surface water and groundwater, that those aquifers, they do not contribute any water to the river actually. So rivers are dry. So groundwater has a lot to do with the river flow actually, and which in terms has a lot to do with the river rejuvenation or river cleaning, which we say. Similarly, not many people understand in India what is the importance of, let's say, flood plains. Floodplains not only allow more water, it's not only room for the river, actually, it doesn't allow only more water to spread. They are good storehouse of water, actually, so that after the flood is over, they are the ones who will store so much water for our needs, actually. But what do? We basically allow all our floodplains to be encroached. All kinds of buildings, including temples and everything, come on floodplains, actually. So there's a lot on water, actually, which in my opinion people should understand, and that's what I had started a few things, and which is continuing. Of course, government is always in continuity. I started 3 years back something called a water talk, that every month on a fixed day, third Friday of every month from 3 to 5 p.m. we used to hold a water talk. Of course, I used to speak there also, but mainly we used to bring someone, not necessarily an engineer or not necessarily a bureaucrat, but those who have really done some good work in the field. They used to come and share their experiences, actually, whether it's a Lakshman Singh of Laporia or whether Rajinder Singh ji or whoever it may be. Similarly, I used to have every Saturday. Saturday is a holy day for us, but every Saturday I used to be at least 2 hours. In fact, we always used to go almost 2.5 hours, 3 hours. I used to have dialogues with the district magistrates, actually, because I felt district magistrate and municipal commissioners, water, in my opinion, is a local problem, and we should find a local solution to it. So we used to have every day, maybe about 4 district magistrates will come. I had already covered quite a few districts, maybe about 30-40 districts by the time I got into a new ministry, actually. So water is one part. Water and wastewater is related, actually. That's why we need to understand water. The more water you use, the more wastewater you will generate, actually. And everywhere there is one from the point of view of a water shortage, but the other is from point of view of less wastewater we will have to manage it, actually. So that's why it's very important what Devyani said about, in the sense that, let's say, steel making. What is the kind of water consumption? What is the specific water consumption? Water consumption per how many meter cube of water is consumed, let's say, making per ton of steel, actually. How does it compare with the best in India? How does it compare best in the world? And then the scheme, as he says, there used to be a PAT scheme, perform, achieve, and trade. I was trying to do similar kind of thing for water, actually, that you fix up a benchmark and give a time. Those who achieve, incentivize. Those who are not able to achieve, then maybe they have like as people used to buy a renewable energy certificate or some such concepts, actually. So we have been in the process of developing that kind of a concept for water sector also. Hopefully my successor and others will take that forward, actually. Now, coming back to wastewater, the first lessons in wastewater I got when, again, as I told you, I was Director General, National Mission for Clean Ganga. And I was surprised, as again has been very rightly pointed out, Devani, that we don't have a proper data, whether it's for the water or wastewater. Of course, water we are trying, and wastewater we are trying through what we had started, National Water Informatics Center, NWIC, where basically at one platform you have all the data available, and the data talk to each other. But on wastewater, we find that basic information, in the sense ki Ganga, how much wastewater comes, from which sources, there are point sources, non-point sources, which cities, how much sewage they generate. Primarily, I'm talking of sewage right now, not so much of industrial, how much sewage they generate. What is the sewage treatment capacity which has been created? But there's another problem. Later on, when I was not only looking after Ganga, I was looking for whole of the country. In fact, I was heading, as a Secretary, Ministry of Jal Shakti, I was heading a Central Monitoring Committee, NGT mandated. And then I find that everywhere you will get data relating to what is the STP capacity created. Nowhere you will get the data that how much sewage is actually getting treated. So everybody is interested for capacity creation. And that's why I used to say that we pay for construction, we don't pay for performance. So for the first time, it took me almost 3 months to get collected from even some of the principal secretaries, State Pollution Control Board. They were also surprised. Some of them talked to me, sir, that we never bothered that, okay, how much sewage we are getting generated, how many STPs they have, who owns those STPs, what is the kind of input are those STPs functional, non-functional? If they are functional, at what capacity they are functioning, and if they are treating, whether the treated water conforms to the norm or not. Does it meet the standards or not, either the CPCB or MOEF standards or not? Even these basic things were not there. One city you will go and you will find that there are 4 different organizations. There would be maybe a Nagar Nigam, there may be a development authority, there may be a UP Jal Nigam. You go to Ghaziabad, you go to Kanpur, you go to Allahabad, you will find at least 3 organizations, different organizations dealing with wastewater. I'm talking of right now only sewage. Whatever is true for sewage is to a large extent true for industrial effluent as well. So, in fact, the Narenji spoke about 2 of the sewage treatment plants at Haridwar and Sarai. They were the first ones which we took up under what is called a hybrid annuity mode. And this is the concept which people initially said that no, this will not succeed actually. I'll take just a minute or so just to explain very briefly what hybrid annuity mode for sewage management or the industrial effluent management is. In this, basically, the one who is developer, you call it a contractor, you call it developer, you call it a concessionaire, whatever name you take, basically we pay him only 40% of the capex till he commissions the plant. So balance 60% is paid over a period of 15 years, every year in 4 equated monthly installment, subject to the condition that he fulfills the design parameters for which this plant was constructed. So it was not only that one is, and another important thing is that 15 years operation and maintenance cost is also projectized. It becomes a part of the capex actually. Otherwise, what happens in most of our experience in the past had been that we constructed a plant, but the plant did not run because there was not enough provision made for its operation and maintenance. The one is that we projectize O&M, project cost became double. Generally 100 crores, suppose you spend on a project. If you really see the 15 years operation and maintenance becomes another 100 crores, 200 crores. But what we did is we paid him only 40 crores to begin with. So 200 crores project, both including O&M, we could complete commission in 40 crores. And then over next period of 15 years, we will be paying him both operation and maintenance, an unpaid amount of the capex, as well as interest on that capex which he has brought in actually. But only the big if is that his performance parameter should meet the design parameters. And that is why today someone can go like the first project we not only started, we completed also was the Haridwar Jagjitpur STP and the Sarai STP actually, the new ones actually, which did it under hybrid annuity mode. We went one step ahead. We went on what is called a one city, one operator. We said no, in one city like in Kanpur or Allahabad, there would be only one person. So all the new greenfield projects as well as all brownfield projects was brought under one roof. And so that we have to deal with only one person. There are, of course, a large number of other things also we started. Some of them have been achieved, some were in the process, like online computerized effluent monitoring system, so that sitting here, I should be able to know how much sewage or how much industrial effluent is flowing into a STP or a CETP, what is its input parameters, what is output parameters. So all that can be captured sitting at home actually. So coming to that, I didn't know when I was dealing with all this, then in the midst of that, I got transferred to a Ministry of Textiles. Of course, I knew that textile is a polluting industry, and especially the processing part of textile industry is a polluting industry. Because I remember even in Ganga Basin, we had a few small clusters actually. Those were small clusters, like let's say a Ruma cluster, some such clusters which I was aware of. But I never knew about bigger clusters, maybe a Pali or Sanganer or Erode or Surat or some such places where a big processing clusters are there. Then I learned that we also have a scheme. Outside, I was not aware that we have a scheme called, when he was talking about 8 tufts actually, I'm not talking right now 8 tufts also. There's a scheme called IPDS, Integrated Processing Development Scheme, IPDS. Now it looks as this is for the entire processing development, but basically this scheme is only for treatment of wastewater which comes out of the textile processing hubs. Unfortunately, even though the scheme was started 5 years back, I remember when in January, late January, 28th of January, when I joined and found out, then I found out that in last some 5 years, we have done some 88 crores or something like worth of assistance we have given to them. And maybe another 50 crores, then I could get it released by March or so. Now, in fact, tomorrow also we are giving a final shape to this IPDS scheme for the next 5 years actually. There were a lot of problem in the sense that the funding pattern, the release pattern, in the sense, for example, let's say existing IPDS says that the last installment of 20% out of the total 50% which will be assessed would be given 3 years after commissioning. Now, how does a plant gets completed if you give a assistance 3 years after it gets completed actually? So there are a lot of them, but here also the same problem I faced. I have been talking to my friends in CPCV, in National Mission for Clean Ganga, in some other organizations like TWIC, Chennai West, TWIC, TWIC, etc., to get a basic data relating to these clusters actually. First thing we must have that, okay, what are our major clusters? There are major clusters, there are minor clusters. The major clusters are there. In major clusters, how much is the effluent which our processing units are generating? Now to treat that, what is the present, does the individual industry have ETPs? And if so, then are the ETPs connected to those CETPs actually? And are those adequate capacities there? So what we call is a condition assessment. In Ganga, we did the same thing. The first thing we did is what is called a condition assessment of those cities actually. Similarly, here there's a need to do a proper condition assessment of all these clusters to know not only how much industrial effluent gets generated, but what is the present capacity. And the next would be, if the capacity is there, somewhere even in STP we found out, let's say like Jammu or somewhere, we found that let's say capacity has been created 30 MLD, but treatment is not even 5 MLD. So similarly here, if the capacity has been created, how much are we treating, and are we conforming to the norms or not? So that has to be the starting point actually. And then we must think that in 5 years, we will ensure that the no untreated effluent flows from this processing hubs to whichever water bodies, be it a river or whatever it may be. Now, that's doable in my opinion, of course, but here one thing is not only from pollution point of view. What I realized after maybe spending a little more time, unfortunately in last 2-3 months, we have not been able to work much because of the pandemics actually, and last 1 month has been very bad actually. In fact, I was planning to, very recently when I had the review of ongoing IPDS projects, I was planning to have a webinar like this involving everyone, talking more about the wastewater management in textile industry, which I have not been able to do it. But then it's not only a question of, like when I was in Ministry of Water Resources, I used to think in terms of kind of a quality of water, quality of surface water, quality of groundwater. Here I find that this wastewater management is a matter of survival for the textile industry actually, especially when we are now talking in terms of a sustainable textile. But even otherwise, I have found out that every major cluster of textile today has one or the other legal cases going on. Whether it's a Supreme Court, whether it's a High Court, whether it's NGT, perhaps there is not one place which doesn't have a case. And many places, even let's say I had a very long discussion with a gentleman who came from Pali. Now in Pali today, basically we are working at 30% of the capacity. And that is because instead of 7 days a week, 5 days a week, instead of 3 shifts, there is only 1 shift. And primarily because the NGT says that you will generate only as much industrial effluent as you can treat actually. Now there also there is only one STP which is functional out of 5 or 6 CETP which has been made. There is only one which is functional. So Then, of course, the questions about whether it should be ZLD, not ZLD, is not only a new plants, but the old plants. Can it be revived? Can it be made compliant? So there are a lot of issues relating to basically a wastewater management coming out of the our processing clusters or processing hubs actually. And we all are aware that some of the processing hubs were closed for months together, years together, only on the directions of the court actually, and rendering a lot of people basically jobless or so much loss to the economy actually. So in my opinion, it becomes a responsibility both for the government, whether it's my ministry or whether it is the pollution control boards or Ministry of Jal Shakti or everyone put together, and the state government as well as industries actually. Because see, as far as the municipal bodies are concerned, they are different cup of tea because they are treated more like a government. But as far as the industries are concerned, since you earn money, I'm not saying that all processing hubs are making a lot of money, but being an industry, both as a corporate social responsibility as well as from our very own survival, it is necessary that we invest in these. Sometimes what happens that any kind of investment in these kind of green technology, etc., is not supposed to be very productive in short term, because it doesn't perhaps lead to improvement in your bottom line or top line immediately actually. But we must ensure that more and more stricter norms are coming. In the past also, a lot of these kind of polluting industries were relocated in some of the countries where maybe even India, where our norms have been less tight actually. And now some of the industries, I am told, that being relocated into Africa, etc., where today the norms is less tight actually. It's becoming tighter in India as it had happened in the West quite a few years back actually. So I feel we are our kind of a starting a new kind of IPDS scheme for next 5 years actually, which we plan that we will address some of the shortcomings which was there in the existing program. But at the same time, I feel that industry has a lot of role to play. We have to have a more dialogue with the industry, because it's a matter of their very survival actually. It's not just doing some kind of a charity that we must not pollute water. Water is required for our children, this, that, and all. That's fine. But then first you must save the industry, which is supposed to be the second highest generator of employment after agriculture, as they say, textile industry. So friends, I have taken, as I told you, this is a subject where I have a little more passion than perhaps is required. So that's why I have taken more time than it was required. And that's why Devani was very kind enough. She says that either you can be a speaker or you can ask someone from your ministry to speak. Then I thought that maybe I must come and speak on something which is very close to my heart. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think it's a big win for the industry, because in a matter of these few minutes, you have touched upon all the challenges and all the issues that need to be looked at. If we are talking about good action and sustainable action on water, whether it be from use or whether it be from wastewater management. And I think there are too many messages for me to try and summarize, but I think your whole focus on the cluster level and the data, and something you touched upon like a water security plan, and maybe we can work on something at a cluster level, not a water security plan, but what does the matching that demand and supply and being prepared for it and being ready for it. And you did talk about awareness, which is very important. So it is very heartening to hear the focus on the industry and in collaboration with the industry, which I think, like you said, is going to be key. And there are many, many points. So I really thank you for taking the time to, share your thoughts. And I think for 2-3 months, I think you've hit all the right points, and picked up on the challenges that are faced today and are already working on the solutions, which I think is great. And we're running a little behind time, but I would like to take this, I would like to thank Shri UP Singh ji for his words. I would like to thank Narendra ji, for sharing his experience with us. And over the course of these 3 to 4 months, we've been speaking to quite a few stakeholders from the industry, and it's been a challenging time, and other institutes. And I would like to take a moment to thank them as well for their patience, for their expertise, for their willingness to engage, despite these challenging times. And a lot of them are also joining us for the conversation today. So we are absolutely And I think biggest thank to our partners, Refashion Hub, because they've made it possible to have these conversations. And we've had some great support, for people who've joined our team and helped us connect with the industry. And I'll come to them later. So just without further ado, we do have a panel discussion planned. And this panel discussion is bringing different perspectives. They're from the industry, they're from policy actors, they're from technology, they're from a chemical point of view, because that hasn't, and also from source of water, like, the supply to the industry. So without further ado, I would like to quickly just introduce the panelists. I will perhaps not be able to spend too much time into going into details, but I would request all the panelists, if they can, switch on their video.
At this stage, just give me a moment. I will have to leave actually, so I won't be available. But I wish panel discussion a great success, and do come back to me with the recommendations or whatever you feel is important actually. So at this stage, I will say bye to all of you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to listen to you, sir. Thank you so much. So I would, without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Vivek Kaparia, who's Secretary, Sardar Sarovar Narmada Nigam Limited. And so thank you for joining us. I know it's a little challenging time, and that you're also spending your time on emergency duty. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Chetan Kumar Sangole, who's the head of sustainability desk in the Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, an old colleague and a dear friend. Energy absolutely difficult to match, is brimming with ideas at all times. Ankur Khanna ji, owner Khanna Industries, I think one of the politest and most patient people, who has answered all my silly questions also, quite a few, very, very patiently, and delightful to have him here. Dr. K. Ramesh, I think a 5-minute conversation with him was like a 1-hour lecture. I couldn't have picked up more. He is brimming with knowledge, and, with expertise will add a lot of value. Dinesh Chopra ji, we have a short acquaintance, but immense experience in chemicals, experience with water management. And last but not the least, because we do believe in gender equality and turning everything on its head, we will not start with the lady. We'll have Archana from the UNEP program. I've known Archana from FICCI days, very passionate about this field and work, and has some interesting insights to share. So do I have Vivek ji actually? I'm not sure. Is Vivek Kaparia ji there? Because I know that Vivek ji is also on duty.
I think he's there. The
video says. Yes, I can see Vivek ji.
Yeah.
So Vivek ji, if I can start with you. Because you're managing an important aspect, you're talking about supply of water, and that supply of water being managed both to industry and domestic as well. So can you just share, and we've been talking about water, we've talked about demand side management. So just wanted to understand from your perspective that, have you seen a change in the demand over the past decade for water in the industry? And when we are talking about stricter water use norms, which UP Singh ji referred to as well, then how will the industry be impacted? And what the industry can be doing to mitigate some of these risks. So, sir, if you can share some of your thoughts with us.
Sorry, I would like to interfere.
Yes, sir.
Myself, MD Patel, Chief Engineer from the Sardar Sarovar Narmada Nigam Limited. Mr.
Yes,
Vivek Kapadia is in one of the emergency meeting because
the
cyclone Toket is passing over the Gujarat state, and that is why the emergency. He's in one of the emergency meetings, so he will not join the webinar.
Okay.
Sorry for on behalf of the.
No worries, sir. It's absolutely understandable. So, sir, would you be speaking in his behalf, or should I move to the next speaker, sir?
Thank you very much.
Okay. I think it's understandable. Vivek ji did inform us. Chetan, if I can then come to you. As a representative and as an important aspect of sustainability that you are managing, right? given the water situation in Maharashtra, which we are all aware of, what is the impact that has been on the industry, right? One of the things we always hear is also this balance between agriculture and industry. And, so what has the impact been on the industry? What are some of the steps that are being taken to address water scarcity? And where do you think, the industry needs to focus, or how does it need to consider water usage in the future? So over to you, Chetan.
Thank you, Devyani. Thank you very much for this question. That way, Shri UP Singh ji has made my job very easy, because he has shared really great insights, quite historical progress on the water front for the nation. Also, you highlighted those key messages which are quite, standing stall for the, the future work in water. If you look at, but I'll just, try to add some differentiating insights for this, because the climate change is really making a huge impact. Though UP Singh, said that we are into the water abundance is there, and, the water supply is good, but still we are facing a water stress in several places. And that too, over a period of 1 year, say 2-3 months are really very scary for the industries. If you look at then food industry, textile, or whether it is a real estate sector, we need water, because these are the water intensive sectors. So where, how to, what kind of solutions we required, because I'll talk about first the supply chain, supply of water. Though we have great water availability, but still that water is not accessible. That is a challenge. Now that is where we need to work on the water infrastructure for the distribution, and then the quality of water again, because we, somewhere we need a high quality water. And because if you get a high quality water, then you need to skip RO, or the RO efficiency can be increased, and then, even the wastewater treatment will be very easy of that quality. Industries are already taking really great leap to reduce or to be competitive. Please note, they do have the zero effluent strategies, equipment. They are connecting it to CETP somewhere, where there is no availability of safety. They are using it for the own purpose, somewhere for the general purpose use, or maybe gardening or horticulture kind of things. But I'll just give you one example. What kind of actions are required from the supply side. Because when we talk about water, of course, everyone is a stakeholder. The regulators are also stakeholders to it. The industries are also stakeholders, and the people. Because normally the water is required more for the people. No? The products are also being manufactured for the people. So there. We need to come up with really great indicators. I'll not call it a benchmark. I'll call it indicators, because region-wise indicators are very important. Whether it is on the water availability indicator, or the groundwater or underground water, what are those indicators? We need to have that indicator in hand, and where we should able to extrapolate if the climate changes in the same fashion, or if it is going to make impact, then where will be those indicators putting us as a the entire economy and the challenges front, you can say. And then I'll talk about the demand side. Of course, it is quite encouraging to come up with an incentivize some policy or actions for encouraging the contribution from the industry side. But if you look at, there are several industries already doing some work under the CSR for the societies that we should not one should not ignore, right? And for them also, when someone is doing something like that, they're also working on the saving of water, right? But if they are being empowered with some kind of digital movement, with some kind of technology, and I'll just give you one example for that. If I am an industry, the unit, and I'm using say 100 units of water, and I'm paying for 100, for that, there has to be such a great action-oriented program where that will lead either reduction of that 100 units of water consumption with a great, the business model, or okay, I am fine with my 100 units, or Sarkar is also fine with the 100 units, keep consuming 100 units. What are, the pricing I'm paying for that 100 units, either it should come down. So that is how the collaborative and contributing, efforts, needs to be framed. And that is where we need a great survey studies for that region level, and then come up with the solutions. Otherwise, if Maharashtra is such a state, you'll find all the weather conditions of India except the snowfall. We have got everything here in the Maharashtra, and industries are the main, the key economy player, after the agriculture. So I feel there is still, of course, the challenge is supply and management gap that can be only addressed to regional, and of course with the great action-oriented, the programs, policies there. Policies also giving great guidelines, but who is going to take the first action? That is what is important. The stakeholders needs to come together, and who should anchor that program or anchor that movement, right? So that is the one. We are talking about all about the industries. Okay, well taken, those points, but industries needs to be empowered with the technology, and with the digital movement I feel that transparency will also come about the water usage, about the, whether you're polluting the water, or something like that. Okay, so the digital movement, there has to be some great package program for that, so that which empowers with the data. You talk about the data collection and the data studies and all those things, but I'll more talk about the sharing of data is very important. If I know what about, surrounding my industries 100 kilometers away, what kind of water bodies are there, from where the water is getting sourced, how much liters, who is using what, how much, or what are the water ground tables, are they depleting or are they overcoming, what kind of biodiversity, or if the ETP or CETP is working on, and then how it is creating impact on the food quality, for those, because of that contaminants or water pollutants, something like that. So that is very important. So survey study, and then solution, and then have a great program. And that is where the approach is important, the management approach, of the water management approach, I call it. So this is how the management approach should drive, and that approach will lead to some, the technology development, some R&D, some, education institutes, some certification courses can be also developed. We need to think how we can scale up a great technology with great, the economic viability of that. Normally when something goes wrong, or if the policies are changing, then certainly the prices go up. That should not be the part, right? And then the third is, once the technology is, we see that the technology is really giving the result, then how to scale up that. So that is where we need to come work with the market demand, for those kind of technologies. And then the third is the financing aid for it, and then see the impact for the next, 5 years, where those programs will lead to, for those indicators, whether it is water availability, or whether it is water distribution, or whether it is water quality, or whether it is a wastewater quality, what will be that. So that is how, I look at this thing. So the contribution of course is required. Industries are really doing great job, but we need a great someone who will hold this, all these stakeholders, because we have got a different ministries, different departments. So we need to have something, a larger program for that. So that is what, for the time being, I'll share here.
Sure.
And if something you have, because we are already running out of time, I feel you will not ask the next question, but if so does, then I'll of course quickly answer those. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So Chetan, I think you talked about that, look at a programmatic approach, and it's not just data collection, but it's data sharing and how do you utilize that data. And I think you also touched upon the regional and local approach, that it can't be one size fits all. The solutions have to speak to what the requirement of that particular region or location is. So I think very important points. Thank you so much. Ankurji, if I can come to you now, because I think you've heard UP Singh ji, and these are some of the things that you are seeing, that now, your input water is going to have a cost to it. There are CETPs that are being, there are some developments that are happening on wastewater management, but, water has probably not received the same focus as energy had. And energy had a very definite cost, but water is beginning to get there. And given this shift in water, and given also the developments that we are seeing, whether it be in technology, you know, how is the industry looking at it? Because you bring that perspective, and is there adequate focus, or there needs to be more focus? What is the current conversation around water? What are the focus areas, you know, that the industry has, and where do you see opportunities for the industry to actually improve their water footprint? So what are some of your thoughts on that?
So am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Yeah. Hello. Am I audible? Loud and clear. Okay. So very good afternoon to all, and thank you, Devyani, for letting me in an informative discussion we are going through. One thing I would start with is whenever the issue of environment or water or energy comes up, I always have a tagline in mind, which is we should manage the unavoidable and we should avoid the unmanageable. So I would say that I'm going to start with this. Secondly, I'll be making it very crisp because we are short on time. So first of all, the hand holding. So you're talking about the hand holding in water management for the dyeing industry in particular, the processing industry we are talking about. So I would, discuss few points which I'm thinking that by the way of workshops or by the way of discussion, we should move to the industry. One is process optimization. So by adopting best techniques available, we should optimize the process where we can save a lot of water. Second is automation, either semi or fully, depends on the industry and depends on the finances. The third is the reuse of water, which is the condensate, cooling water, closed loop system, and all those systems, which most of the SME is lacking. The fourth point is moving to a continuous drying process as compared to a batch processing. So always, I'm going a little technical. So if you're into a batch process, it's going to consume more water as compared to a continuous process. So I would urge that people in SME sector should also move towards a continuous process as compared to batch process to save water, energy, and a lot of other utilities. And the fifth point is housekeeping. So housekeeping is one big problem that we are losing on a lot of utilities with poor housekeeping, like hoses left running, broken and missing valves, excessive water use in washing operations, leaks from pipes, walls, and pumps, cooling water running when machinery is shut down, and defective toilets and water coolers, for example. So we are losing a lot of water, although it's a small amount, but small amount is going to make a huge impact in water saving. And one thing more I would like to say, because we have a lot of people from Ministry of Textiles and other government departments. So for an industrialist like me, I would rather say that if you can show me the qaida and faida of a system, so you tell me this is what you need to do and this is how you are going to have a financial benefit out of it. So people will readily adopt the system. And secondly, I'm sure India has a lot of policies on a lot of things, but the missing part is the implementation. So if we could have better implementation with the policies we are making, I would rather say that it is better that we have lesser policies and more implementation on the ground. Writing just policies on the paper does not help, and it is not going to give you any output. The second, Devyani, you had asked me for the government support. So my request to the government with this is that, we should have a clearer policy for groundwater extractions. One is down the line, what does the government is looking forward to, and what kind of policy are they going to get? Because the policy system is changing so frequently that the industrialist like me is getting confused where to put the investment. Second is for disposal, same, the clearer policy for disposal. What kind of policies they're going to have for effluent, ETPs, CTPs, or any other kind of treatment. Third is, I would say, incentives for process automation and upgradation. I think it should be quick, and they should be industries should be apprised of what kind of incentive the government is offering for automation and upgradation. The fourth point is the rainwater harvesting, because in our kind of industry, we are not allowed to do rainwater harvesting. But I mean, since even the SME sector also has a huge rainwater to be harvested, we should be allowed to do rainwater harvesting. And the fifth point is surface water supply. That if possible, if the government or the local body can supply us surface water, and it will be very good. We can save a lot of groundwater, and it will be easy for us. Obviously, it has to be a government-oriented project, but obviously, if the industry is ready to pay for the same, then I don't think the government is going to have a problem with it. And the last, obviously, Mr. UP Singh also talked about was the funding from MOT for CTPs and other upgradations.
Okay, thank you. I think those are very crisp inputs. Yeah. No,
yeah,
sorry,
the last
carry
point,
on. I thought
the
you'd
last
finished.
point I would like to,
on.
yeah, then I'm done. I'm almost done. Water is it's a very expensive thing to buy, treat, and dispose. So if any industry is not thinking about it right now, they are really pouring their money down the drain. So it's high time that we should start thinking about it and do something on the ground. I mean, just policy making is not going to help. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankurji, because those are, along the lines of what Chetan has said, action orientation, better, implementation. So I quite like the Qaida and Faida, because that is the business case that we are talking about, that unless we show the business case, we will not get the buy-in. And I think you've also touched upon, which I was going to go back to Chetan, in the next round, perhaps, is also what needs to be done for SMEs, differently, because large units are sometimes able to manage this on their own. But I think your points on the housekeeping, because these are simple measures, but very effective measures, and every little bit matters. So I think that this is something also that we saw in energy, right? When energy efficiency, that process improvements were as important as technology. So I think those points are really, really helpful and quite clear input. So I thank you for that. And with that, I would like to come to Dr. Ramesh. And sir, just want to understand, because you bring in the technology perspective, right? And when we talk about wastewater management in particular, technology has a very important role to play. And your experience, your work has been a lot with wastewater management. Couple of things that, what are some of the new solutions that are coming to wastewater management? Because I know there are some innovations around energy also, energy consumption and water management systems that you have been looking at. And also just a little bit, if you can touch briefly upon that, when we look at discharge into CETPs, mostly the CETP water is not being recycled too much, at least for industry usage. It is being used. Whether there are any norms around that, and how do the costs and benefits, because one of the biggest challenges I think the industry is facing is the cost, extremely costly solutions that are out there. So how do the costs and benefits compare in your experience? So sir, if I can request you to try and capture this in 5 minutes, would be great. Dr. Ramesh, over to you, sir. You're on mute.
Good afternoon to all. I'm Dr. Ramesh, representing from NWIC, Tamil Nadu. Actually, the wastewater recycling is basically decided by, there are three factors. One is the water scarcity of that particular region, then water pollution, then regulatory requirements, basically decided by that concerned state pollution control boards. So these three factors is often decided by whether water recycling facilities required or not. But obviously, if you look at the water scarcity point of view, so all the industries, particularly the textile industries, they must have a recycling facilities, because textile industries are the major water consumers and the energy consumers. So in this perspective, so water recycling is the best fit option. So in this water recycling, there are two twin challenges can be solved by the textile dyeing industries. One is so they can achieve the 24/7 compliance. So in terms of discharge standards. Then point number two is water scarcity that can be totally avoided, because during summer season, most of these states they are facing a supply of water. Some reports reveal that 54% of the Indian state are water stressed. So textile is the major industry which are facing often to non-availability of water. Even in Tirupur also, these industries are often shut down their production because of non-availability of water during summer season. But those who are ZLD plants, they are recycling water very often, and also they are making the production consistently without any interruption. This one, point number one, whether this recycling facility, whether it's rated or not. Then point number two, when we look at the cost, basically, as you rightly said, so cost is the major deciding factor for the industry owners, basically. So this cost, when we look at the capex and opex, basically, there are two costs which are used to assess the viability of the technology. There are two costs. One is capex and opex. So I'm giving example for a reactive dyes based dyeing where the CTP facilities. So where the capex roughly would be about 15 to 16 crore per MLD, whereas opex roughly about 180 rupees to 200 rupees per metric. This is the base cost. Basically, it's a gross O&M cost. If we look at the resource recovery's point of view, in Tirupur, water cost is 80 rupees per kiloliter, and sodium sulfate is 15 rupees per kg. If we look at the recovery at the rate of 98% from the wastewater by using the RO technology and thermal evaporator technology, and also salt recovery about 80 to 90%. If we consider these resources as a revenue, so the net to O&M cost would be 60 to 70 rupees. So 180 to 200 rupees the gross cost. If we consider the recovery cost to 120 to 130 rupees, including water cost and salt cost, so the final net to O&M cost would be 60 rupees, which is comparable to conventional treatment cost. So that is the reason this ZLD is always viable for, particularly for textile industries, irrespective of the region where it is located. Then point number 3, this one in terms of financial aspect. So we did a lot of calculation on financial aspect. So what would be the cost to per kg of fabric in terms of treatment cost? So if we do the calculation based on 1:5 liquor ratio of dye machine, and water cost 80 rupees and salt cost 50 rupees, then the financial impact basically comes around 5 to 6% of the production cost. So which is normally the dark shade is being sold at the open market around 120 rupees. So 5% is very negligible, and also they can maintain they can achieve the standards at the all time, and also they can maintain the resources. Now water is the commodity. So without water you can't run the dyeing operation. So these are challenges we can easily avoid it by adopting this zero liquid technology. Then one more important point, this energy perspective, So to treat 1 metric cube of water, wastewater, right from pre-treatment to secondary treatment, followed by reverse osmosis, then mechanical evaporator. So this is the basic zero liquid discharge configuration. So to treat 1 metric cube of raw wastewater having TDS 10 grams per liter, so the energy would be about 9 to 10 units per meter cube. So which is a little bit higher, but based on our experience, we faced so far last 1 decade. So we developed a latest one technology, so where we can use the solar energy, solar thermal system, basically not a photovoltaic.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but I think certain people are not able to hear your audio. Can I request you to speak a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah. So actually, regarding this, this one in terms of energy conservation point of view. So I said 9 to 10 kilowatt hour is the basic energy consumption to treat 1 metric cube of raw wastewater having TDS 10 grams per liter. So this figure is based on reactive dyeing with the sodium sulfate salt dyeing, right? So don't compare with any other saltless dyeing. So then, so here the energy plays the major critical role here, because, in Tamil Nadu, they are charging around 8 rupees per kilowatt hour per unit. So to reduce the cost of operation, so we developed a integration of solar thermal energy with the membrane distillation. So membrane distillation is kind of is a evaporator where we are not using any steam at all. So only we can generate the hot water using this solar thermal system. That hot water we can use it as a heating medium instead of steam. So here, my overall steam consumption is 0. And after incorporating these changes, so the final energy consumption would be 7 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. So when we look at the O&M cost for this configuration, the O&M cost would be 130 rupees per meter cube. So which comes down from 200 to 130 rupees. So 70 rupees saving. Again, if you look at the water cost and salt cost, I can generate revenue, not a investment. I can generate revenue 18 rupees per cubic meter because of savings from water and salt. So this is these are all the some critical points and also proven. So this is the reason textile industries are best fitted to go for a zero liquidity charge or water recycling facilities in all states. So.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think this merits a whole discussion because we also feel that I think, wastewater reuse is going to be a requirement of the future, that 0% discharge, with different ways. And I think it would be interesting and more useful to know that how it can be looked at, in different locations, like how roadmaps can be developed. Because I think there is still a lot more need to create more awareness, to look at the cost benefit analysis for different locations, and also decide on how, these plants can be looked at. But thank you so much for providing. And what we can also do with everyone is, because sir has very helpfully actually penned an article for us as well around the same, and we can share it with everyone, for further perusal. So thank you so much for laying that down for us, because I think the costs benefits that you've brought in is important to understand, because I think the focus remains on the high costs, but you have some examples on how certain ZLD plants have been operationalized, how schemes have been leveraged on, and what is it that it means for operating and recovering costs. So I think.
And also one more thing, madam.
Yes, sir.
One more thing. Actually, in addition, the cost factor is mainly decided by the what type of technology we are adopting. So that is the basic thing. Even biological treatment, we have a number of configurations. But we have to select based on the wastewater characteristics and the footprint available. So
yes, that absolutely, sir. So thank you so much. And with that, I would like to turn over to Mr. Dinesh Chopra, who has immense experience, working with chemicals. And we know that the apparel and textile industry is also famous or infamous for use of extensive number of chemicals, quite a few of which are toxic. But there has been a shift over the past few years. There is a changing trend, right? There is more awareness, or there is more talk about cleaner chemicals. And in your role, in your experience as ex-director Honeywell, and also as a member of the Indian Chemical Council, which is leading, what are some of the major changes that you are seeing with regards to use of chemicals in the textile sector? And what impact does it have on wastewater? If you can try and link the two, I think that would be great. And if you can briefly touch upon the responsible care program, which ICC manages, because that also, it's a whole large scale program that looks at a shift moving to cleaner chemicals or managing your chemical footprint, would be great to hear.
Sure. Thank you, Devani, for inviting ICC onto this discussion. Just for the viewers' benefit, Indian Chemical Council, which I represent here, was established in 1938 and is dedicated basically to the growth and promotion of chemical industry in India, which includes all petrochemicals, chemicals, and industry, where we do a lot of events, trainings, awards, and recognition, policy, advocacy, and all. Going back to the textile industry as such, means I graduated from UDCT in 1985 into textile processing chemical area, and joined the processing mill. The structure of the textile industry was very different, whether it was processing of the natural fiber like cotton and all, or for wool, or or synthetic were just coming up, like polyester or nylon were already into vogue. And then the way we were using water there, and the way we were wasting water, and where we were treating water into the ETPs, because it was done for the whole mill or something like that, then came a shift towards the machinery, which shifted to the circular dyeing machines or the processing machines. And then as chemical suppliers, whether I was working for ICI or for Hearst or BASF, we were introducing chemicals which were low foaming and use low water, high temperature dyeing, and all those kind of things which were using much less water and wasting less much water. And then also, as we were doing that, fortunately for all the different kind of textiles which we use, blends, cotton or synthetics or all, only area of bleaching, dyeing and washing normally uses most of the water. Rest is all so that actually limits the area where we are, it's not the desizing or sorry, the sizing or the spinning and all other or weaving and all. So in this area we just process and you use the water and take it out and then recycle the water depending on where we are, whatever we are using. And the where we were using the CTPs, which was the standard CTPs earlier, we're using BOD, CODs, and we still do that on doing but the chemical nature it changed and the process changed. We got into membrane technologies, and also now there we are also getting into now the low temperature evaporation technology, which is a new technology where you can recycle around almost 90% of your over 90% of your water, and then use it in the same processes again. And then whatever the sludge you get, you can process it or throw it out separately, whether you do primaries or secondary or tertiary processing. Dr. Ramesh and Ankur has already mentioned about a few areas of cost benefit which has to be there, because ultimately for the whole thing, this is used, everybody as an entrepreneur or an owner will use it as it's a cost for them. It's not adding to any profitability, but it is a very huge cost if we don't do things right, because it spoils the environment, which is a very, very long term not a good thing to do. And to do that, we are coming to the real responsible care initiative, which ICCA is doing it with different companies. I think more than 170 companies are both in the processing side or making chemicals, processing chemicals, where there are guidelines. And once you have a responsible care logo, and or which needs all the audits and all the process to get it and maintain it, it gives you a lot of benefits when you are exporting your material, and you're taken as a very serious player in the environmental area. I still remember the days initially between till even 1990s. If you go to Wapi, it was like people were putting in water, and the color which was coming out was different colors. But now things have changed a lot. I think we are going in a very right direction. We should take latest technologies. There are many other the water treatment technologies available, not only with the textile sector, but for the sugar sector, for the other large chemical plant sectors where there are technologies available. Can we economically use those kind of plants, and or maybe miniature of those plants and technologies for our textile industry, and make it beneficial for us to be sustainable going forward, and be more cost effective, and improve our efficiency. Thank you. That's what I would like to say as of now.
Thank you so much. So I think you brought this cross-sectoral learning, that it's important for us also to learn what are the developments that are happening in other sectors, and can we customize those, and you also mentioned that now the consumer awareness is increasing, the buyers are asking, so sooner or later everyone has to come to this, and the question is whether you want to take the initiative. And yes, it may be a slightly long-term journey. There may be costs initially, whether we take the initiative and define that road for us, or we do this as a reaction to what may be required. Yes, sir.
I just want to make a comment here, and which is for not only for textile industry, for many other industries, especially at businesses before COVID and after COVID, and especially after COVID, what will be the situation of China? Because the bigger brands in H&M or other ones, Walmarts and all the world, where they will be buying from, and I think they will be buying from where these people have these kind of tags, which are more environmental friendly, processed with the environmental friendly, and manage their whole process of the textiles right up to apparels in a very environmental friendly way.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for those insights. And Archana, thank you for your patience. Last but definitely by no means the least. I think UNEP has just recently announced a program which would be of great interest because it's a sustainable textile cluster. But the whole approach to that, if you can talk a little bit about the program and how it's a little different from earlier initiatives, and I'm going to combine both your questions in interest of time, is that, what do you think would be critical for the success of the program? Because UNEP has a lot of role that it plays with policy making, but this time it's also going on the ground, and there, there's a lot of interaction and the whole holistic approach that you're looking at this. So can you just talk about your program? What do you think would make it successful? And given your work with policymakers, right, what role will policy, though, UP Singh ji has touched upon it, Ankur ji has also very clearly put some policy asks there, Chetan has talked about a roadmap. It'd be interesting to hear your perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Devyani, and indeed, very interesting conversation so far. Textiles is an important sector for UNEP globally as well as in India. And we've initiated a couple of projects in this sector with a focus on knowledge development, capacity building, and advocacy. And in line with this objective, UNEP has recently launched a project in Surat Textile Cluster in partnership with Center for Environment Education and in close consultation with the Ministry of Textiles. The objective here is to develop a sustainability roadmap for the Surat Textile Cluster. And it will involve development of a baseline study to identify the environmental footprint of Surat Textile Cluster. And during the course of the project, also provide training and capacity building to the industry on some of the process improvement aspects, which Ankur also highlighted in one of his asks and needs from the industry side. The study would eventually lead us to devise a detailed roadmap for a model sustainable textile hub, identifying short, mid, and long-term goals and tangible targets. The outcome of the project is also expected to draw policy recommendations for local action and will also advocate for a coherent sustainable textile policy framework at national level. This is what we intend to do with this pilot, and we also wish to replicate this in other textile zones of the country. The project is quite relevant in the current context and different from earlier initiatives in the sense that there have been many studies and cluster level interventions in past and also ongoing, which primarily look at a single impact category, be it carbon footprint, be it water footprint, be it chemical footprint. But here in this project, we are going to look at all the impact categories and using a value chain approach to get a holistic view of the environmental footprint of the sector. It will therefore offer a unique perspective and understanding of where the cluster stands. And depending on the baseline, we'll also be undertaking a benchmarking across environmental parameters, including the energy use, the GHG emissions, the water use, the chemical management, and also the waste management part of it. And on that basis, we are going to identify and set actionable goals and improvements. So this is a very broad overview of the project that we just launched last month on 15th of April, and we intend to complete it by end of this year. Coming to the second part of your question, I believe in terms of the critical success factor and role of stakeholders, I think from individual industries to industry associations to government bodies at local, state and central level, I think everyone has a unique yet important role to play in such projects, and the role is very well established. The critical issue in current context is going to be the impact of the pandemic. As Dinesh ji also mentioned, we have to look at the pre-COVID and post-COVID scenarios, and post-COVID also after the second wave, which has just hit, where it's not just about the economic loss, but also the loss of human lives, which is going to determine how much and to what extent will we be able to collect the desired information and convene such dialogues. From the government perspective and based on our interaction with the government, textiles is an important sector in the Indian economy in terms of contribution to GDP, export, employment. And so the development and modernization of the sector has been a priority for the government. Therefore, we see a lot of interest from the respective line ministries, be it the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, where they have identified textiles as a priority sector in their draft resource efficiency policy, and as well as Ministry of Textiles with several ongoing schemes and infrastructure development for textile parks, as the Secretary Textiles mentioned today morning. The vision for the textile and apparel sector also speaks about positioning India as an eco-friendly hub across the textile and apparel value chain, and therefore we see this commitment and cooperation of the highest order from the Ministry of Textiles, as highlighted by the Secretary himself, today as well as on previous occasions. While there is an increasing awareness and exploration of potential for sustainable and circular textile, I think the need going forward is to bring coherence and harmonization across these initiatives. This is where UNEP intends to play its role as a convener and bring industry and government stakeholders on one platform. The UNEP's engagement in India in textile sector is somewhat recent, but we've already started working towards it, and we're trying to bring coherence not just at national level, but also more from a global perspective in the textile sector. I hope that answers your question, Devyani.
It does, Archana, very well. Thank you so much, because I think, this whole approach, and I think some of the feedback that we've received today also fits in quite well, that more implementation, can we look at existing policies and perhaps modification and strengthening them and keeping the industry involved all along the way, right? So whether it's benchmarks, whether it's, action plans, etc., I think that is very key. And I am going to take the liberty to say that I'm going to tag along all the way, because this is a sector very close to our hearts, and there's a lot to be done. There's a lot that has been done, and there is a lot to be done. So I shall be very shameless here and tag along. But I do have questions, and I know that we are 5 minutes before session closing. We do have a very short talk from one of our partners, important partners. But if everyone is okay and willing to, give us a little time, 10 minutes over 5 o'clock, I promise not more than that. We will come to Ashish, but I can open up the floor for questions for about 5 minutes, because I do see a hand up. So I'm just going to, ask you to unmute Pradyuman, right? So a request to you is that please keep the question short, and you can let us know which speaker it is meant for. Meanwhile, if there are other questions, you can put them in the chat. And I am monitoring that as well. So I would do that. Yeah. So I think I'll be able to take 3 to 4 questions only. But if there are others, I've put my email ID and my colleague's email ID. Please do write to us, and we will try to get your questions answered. So if I can ask Pradyuman to ask his question first, and then Mr. Sanjay, and then there's something in the chat that I will come to as well.
Yeah. Can I just say that Secretary Textile made a very clear point, that is from supply and demand point of view, and then moving towards a zero discharge from the industry. Now, how we are looking at this zero discharge, because panelists talked about new technologies, new processes, and then audit should be there and all that. What are our plans in order to move towards this zero discharge? That is the wastewater from the industry, textile industry, that's what we are talking about. That is my question to panelists.
Sure. If I can take a stab at this, right? You are absolutely right. I think we have an end goal, but we have to define that journey, right? And others can come in as well. But you are absolutely right that, and this is the point we are trying to make, that if we are moving towards zero discharge, what is the roadmap? What technology will support? Where will the financing come from? Where is the awareness being generated? Who plays what role? Because I think it's not sufficient to say that this is what needs to be done unless we are clear and ready to have action on how it needs to be done. So I'm not sure that we have that answer for you right now. And I think that answer also needs to be done together with the industry, because I think one of the challenges in the past is that, are we arriving at it together, Or are we giving something, are we working towards something that is given to us? So that is my 2 bits on it, but I will also open it up to other panelists, or even Rijit, if you want to answer this question. Archana, do you want to take this question, or Rijit, do you want to take this question?
Sure. I can probably chip in, and then Archana can supplement. The issue that you've highlighted here is very, very critical. The movement towards zero liquid discharge, which has been tried in some sector, not just in apparel. It has also been tried in the leather footwear sector as well. In terms of the movement towards, I think if one takes a sort of a step back, I think between the panelists, a lot of options for adopting technologies and new technologies and process improvements have been talked about. However, I think what is important, and what Secretary Mr. Singh highlighted, which I think we probably should discuss a little bit more, is the demand side. I think which we haven't really talked about. I think we still are talking on the supply side in terms of improving the processes, improving the infrastructure, making looking at sort of judicious use of materials, chemicals, etc. But we haven't really talked about the incentives, the demand side. So I guess one of the important elements here, not just for the project but also for all the experts here, will be to understand and probably even think about what are those pull factors, whether it is market driven, the role of buyers or brands, whether it is in terms of even public procurement. A lot of textile is procured by public sector undertakings. So while I think zero liquid discharge could be but one of the various options to solve the problems that we have. As an organization, we are not trying to sort of promote one particular option, but that choice should be left to the particular unit or the manufacturer to figure out what is within his or her limits. And that decision should also be made depending on and talking to the demand side actors, whether they are your buyers or brands or even the government. If you're engaging with the government, I think consumers will probably, it will be probably a little bit of a long shot, but I feel a more sort of holistic conversation which takes into account both the supply side and the demand side is important. And that is exactly where I think, Secretary Saab was really pointing towards, that such a forum should be focusing on. I think it is not just the mistake of many of us that we seem to get stuck on the supply side and don't see the demand side. So that would be my sort of limited response here.
Thanks, Rijit. Pradyuman, I hope that answers your question. Sorry, Dinesh, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, maybe, pardon me what I'm saying, maybe, whether relevant or not, but we are taking it, the textile sector, till, from fiber till the fabric is made and sold in the market. And, it is done by the chemicals and discharge and all we are calculating. But, as Rijit said, we should take a holistic view. Most of the pollution happened when whole garment in its whole lifetime is washed by the people and the thing, and there's a lot of water and a lot of chemicals which are harmful, which is not, nature eco-friendly are used. There are, so I think there can be a plan to promote those kind of chemicals which are biodegradable, which are like I still remember when in the low forming ethylene HPL low forming products, when we were introducing a detergent by ICI in 90s. It was huge problem, but the demand was because of the customer, because of the global markets and the kind of things which were required for the machines. But going forward, I think we need to do some research on that, and maybe we can create those kind of products which can be biodegradable, of course cost effective, and that can be reduce regular usage of water in the home also. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think maybe, just 30 seconds. Sorry, Devyani. I think Dinesh has raised a very important point, which is about engaging the consumer or the customer, if I may, as at an institutional level, close to my heart. So that's why I'm tempted. Very important point, Dinesh. I think, for example, the responsible care of ICC, some of us have been seeing it very, very closely. I think now the onus is really on the brands and the manufacturers to try and see whether we are able to educate the consumers also. That's an area where not a lot is happening, as Devyani mentioned. There has been a lot of engagement with the consumers based on energy efficient product usage, refrigerator, blah, blah, blah. But we haven't really talked about water efficient, products that we use at our home. And probably the time is now for us to talk about it. So I think it is a very, very important point, and you've raised probably the topic for a second workshop going forward.
Yes, and this is a big topic. This is a long topic. Yeah, it's a long conversation. So I know Archana raised her hand. So Archana, quickly, then I'll come to Sanjay ji. There are a couple of questions have got answered in the chat. There is a question from LinkedIn. I will reply to that on LinkedIn. Yeah, in interest of time, I will reply to that. I've seen the question, and I will definitely come to it. But Archana, very briefly, then I go to Sanjay ji. Yeah.
I mean, what Dinesh and Rajat just mentioned, I think we need another webinar to discuss this very important aspect of consumer education and communication to consumer. Rajat and Dinesh, I think they've already highlighted the need for it. I just want to mention that we're talking about extended producer responsibility in other sectors, but not in textile sector. Now it's high time that we talk about EPR in textiles as well.
Yes. No, there is. I think if we want sustainability really as a whole, then everyone needs to be engaged. There's a lot to be done on the consumer front. I can say from personal experience also, and perhaps one of the toughest nuts to crack. There is no business case here. There is simply just education, So that is there. Sanjay ji, I am going to ask you to unmute. Can I request you to keep it very brief and ask your question now?
Yes. My one question is to the chemical association, that is the chemical industrial associations. I remember that when I was young, our parents were using half a kg of hydrochloric acid to clean the house. Home furnishing, that is house. It is seen that there are n number of antibacterial, antimicrobial, and so many chemicals for toilet, something different, for bathroom wash, tiles, something different, for cleaning your vessel, something different. So those all chemicals are, according to my today's consumption, it seems that it is 6 times increased, and that everything goes into sewage treatment plant, and the bacteria available at sewage treatment plant are not sustainable to these chemicals. So it is essential that this chemical association or industry should take care that the chemicals which are being marketed for home furnishing should not contain any antibacterial or antimicrobial chemicals which are harmful to the sewage treatment plant. This is point one. Second point is everybody was asking that do we have any benchmarking for water consumption in textiles? I have worked 40 years in textile industries, and right now I'm advisor in Central Pollution Control Board, New Delhi. We have developed a system, what we call a protocol, which shows that
Did we just lose Sanjay ji?
I think we'll.
Oh no, he's here.
He's on mute actually.
Sanjay ji, you are on mute, sir.
Can you make your point briefly? I think.
Pollution Control Director, and it shows that the polyester, nylon, acrylic, wool, cotton, cost many factors. With cotton, with one rosary nuanced, what should be maximum water consumption, and it is also mentioned that first 15% reduction is required, second year 20% reduction is required in water consumption. This will reduce the cost of production also, because water consumes a lot of heat also. Right? Reducing consumption. Now, how to do it? For that, we have given 50 plus points which are required to be adopted, and which are very small, which are discussed during our training program, that like housekeeping or stoppage of a drain, leakage, or such kind of small things, counting the water, level maintenance of level, use of low productive, how to modify the high water consuming equipment into low water consuming equipment. We call it a best management technique.
Sorry, Mr. Harane, if I can quickly interject. Can you make your point? I mean, if you're asking a question, please ask a question. If you're making a submission, then it has to be a little different.
First question can be repeated.
Please make your point briefly and ask the question, and ask us who
do we have any protocol or priority to reduce the homemade chemicals, home chemicals consumption for cleaning, and call it as a cleaning chemical for household purposes.
Sure, thanks. That question is well taken.
Sewage treatment plant.
Yeah, thanks. Devyani, over to you.
Okay.
I think that question is to Mr. Chopra. So,
yeah. So Sanjay, we do have, when we produce and market these products, there are certain protocols, and of course there are guidelines, and so which we followed. Not going into the water kind of a thing, but of course for the cleaning part of whatever needs to be cleaned, we can look into it, and it'll be nice if we can have a separate chat on both your questions, which will consume some understanding and solution. I'll be happy to work with you on that. I'm in Delhi, so no problem on that.
Great, I think that's fantastic. So Sanjay ji, thank you for your question, and we'll stay connected, because I think you even talked maybe a little of a solution. I was not able to hear you properly, but let's take that offline. So I'm going to stop with the questions here, because we do have one small part that we would like to, but an important one, because with Partners Alliance for Water Stewardship, we've been discussing with Refashion Hub also. We do not want to stop this discussion now. I think we've had some great discussion. We have the right people in the room, right? But we often face a challenge that beyond the program, we are not able to follow up on the conversations. And we have here Ashish Bhardwaj, the India coordinator for Alliance for Water Stewardship, who will briefly talk about, a proposed textile forum and the water stewardship approach that we are proposing. So Ashish, thank you so much for your immense patience and for joining us today, because I know you've not been feeling too well, but thank you so much, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Would you like to you'll share your own screen for the presentation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Devyani. And thank you to other speakers as well. It was a very insightful session. So let me share my screen. Okay, so today I'll be speaking on proposed water stewardship forum to take the dialogue forward as we are speaking on, textile water stewardship and wastewater and treatment. But before going to the main topic, of Textile Forum. I'll start with the introduction of who we are and what we do. I'll be very quick, keeping in time the shortest of the time in mind. So I represent Alliance for Water Stewardship. AWS is two things. We are a global membership alliance of businesses, civil society, and public sector, and we are also a global standard system. AWS works at three fundamental building blocks of water stewardship: AWS Standard, which is the international framework for major water users to understand their water use and work collaboratively at the catchment level towards water security; AWS Membership; and the third is Local Water Stewardship Network, as a multi-stakeholder platform to engage different interests and advance water stewardship. The India Water Stewardship Network is already in place and enable a direct link between India, global, and regional water stewardship best practices. So we have four priority sectors that are central to our strategy: textile and apparel, agriculture supply chain, food and beverages, ICT, and microelectronics. And over the course of 2021, we intend to engage with stakeholders from these four priority sectors to identify barriers and opportunities to help more organizations implement credible, robust water stewardship throughout their operations as well as supply chain. We are implementing this approach via the four sector-specific working group. These are global working groups connected to activities in the key sourcing locations. One of the location is India, via the national networks, the forums, and the local forums and the platforms. So if I speak for the textile sector, we have global textile working group. The group is convened by AWS with an aim to identify shared water related challenges and priorities and collaborate to turn ideas into actions to help the sector respond to water challenges. Some of the activities which we take under this global working group, textile working group, is benchmarking AWS and other widely used textile sector standards and initiatives, because there are so many standards and initiatives which are already textile specific, and many of the industries, they are implementing those standards. Then engaging with other textile focused organizations like SAC, Textile Exchange, ISC, WWF, communicating a common pathway from water management to the water stewardship, how we should move from managing our water to stewarding our water, and one-to-one engagement with brands like Bestseller, H&M, Gap, Primark, LD, and some of the organizations like Arvind, Wellspun, and others. Well, the four priority sectors related global textile working groups and the India Water Stewardship Network, they are already in place. And today we are proposing one of the sectoral forum, that is the Textile Water Stewardship Forum. But before going to the details of the Textile Water Forum, I'll talk about India Water Stewardship Network and how it will link to the Textile Water Stewardship Forum to give you a holistic view of how the knowledge and learning are being transferred from global to local, and how these two initiatives are connected to each other. So the India Water Stewardship Network, IWSN, was developed in 2016 with the purpose of bringing together organizations and promoting clearer understanding and uptake of water stewardship in the Indian context. The network was developed with a goal to understand water security in India through a multi-stakeholder driven governance mechanism comprising of private sector, public sector, and civil society organizations. And the network has agreed to develop a national framework of water stewardship using the international AWS standard, understanding the local, social, cultural, and contextual realities of India. To achieve the goal of IWSN, these are the four main objectives. I will not go in much details, but these other objectives are awareness and capacity building, like promotion on understanding of water stewardship, building a pool of water stewardship expert, knowledge and learning by documenting the best good practices, policy and engagement by engaging with the policymaker both at the state and national level, and developing a value proposition of the government linkages. And the last one is governance and sustainability by acting as a sounding board to offer support and advices. The governance structure of IWSN is comprised of steering committee, working groups, and a secretariat. The steering committee consists of three core members, which are WWF India, AWS, and Center for Responsible Business, who laid the foundation of IWSN back in 2016, and 7 other members who are elected for a duration of 2 years through voting among IWSN members. The main responsibility of the steering committee is the institution building and outreach and engagement with external stakeholders, and acting as a co-chair for the working group. The 3 working groups are corporate actions, collective actions, and policy actions. let's have more detail in the working group. So the corporate action is the working group. Basically, this working group will focus on corporate actions and leverage the commitment from the sector leaders to scale up the impacts. Textile and apparel sector and the food and beverages are the two priority sectors which are taken up by the corporate action working group to start with. And some of the action areas of this working group includes anchoring sectoral forums and platforms, developing sectoral knowledge products, organize training, webinars, workshops, document sectoral good practices, and build partnership with the relevant sector associations. Similarly, we have a collective action and policy action working group and the related action areas. I will not go in detail, but if you would like to know more, you can always reach back to me. Since the focus of the organization is textile sector, I will discuss more on how the proposed textile apparel textile forum is being linked to the IWSN. Well, as you can see on your screen, that textile and apparel is one of the priority sector of IWSN working group, and one of the action areas of the working group is to anchor the sectoral forums and platform. And this is where the IWSN will have an opportunity and a direct linkages with the proposed textile forum. Let's learn more about the forum. So we are proposing the Textile Water Stewardship Forum to bring together organizations across the textile and apparel sector, comprising of industries, local NGOs, academia, public sector organizations, etc., with a goal to initiate water stewardship conversation at the textile cluster level and identify the opportunities of collaborations, understanding the local cultural and contextual realities. The forum will be anchored by IWSN with regular exchange of knowledge and learning across the two sectors. These are some of the proposed action areas of the forum to give you a perspective of what kind of engagement we are looking at if we are talking about the Textile Water Forum. This is not an exhaustive list, but just to give you an idea, the action areas and the working plan of the forum will be discussed and finalized by the members of the forum when it will be formed. But to give you an idea, some of the action areas could be like providing a pre-competitive platform to initiate water stewardship dialogues at the cluster level, identifying the opportunities of collaboration by adopting a common approach of water stewardship framework, developing strategic partnerships among stakeholders to advance the water security, or identifying the need of the technology, the need of the training, the need of the awareness, and sharing of knowledge and learning, and initiating dialogues with the policymakers. So these are some of the action areas, but the main action agenda for the forum will be discussed by the members and finalized accordingly. So the way forward is to join the textile working group and the India Water Stewardship Network wherever you deemed fit as per your interest and expertise. Please feel free to write to us if you would like to know or learn more about the Textile Water Stewardship Forum. We can set up a call to discuss more about this, and we'll be speaking with you very soon. So that's all from my side. Back to you, Devyani. If there would be any question, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ashish. I think that was quite succinctly presented, and I think it's a key initiative, to keep this dialogue going. And we did hear from pretty much everyone on the collaboration, and I think from Secretary, Ministry of Textiles also, the need for this action at cluster level. So I think let's take this conversation offline. Let's reach out, because I think this is the right moment to keep this. And with that, I think we come to the end of today's session. And I think we always run out of time. We have a lot more to say. And I really thank all the panelists, all the speakers, all the participants who've joined us today. I think I feel that with all the panelists, we can have one individual session itself. That is so much that is there to be discussed. And I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us, and everyone who stuck with us till the end. I think if you've heard me before, this is the start of a conversation. We definitely, and there are some clear action areas that have come out today. And I think we have the right stakeholders, everyone here. So we definitely will be in touch. And the recording of this session would be available. I think if you have any questions, please do write. I did put in my email ID and my colleague's email ID, but you can write to us, and we can take it back to the relevant speakers, or even to Ashish, in case, because I think Ashish, your email ID is not shared, but we will also reach out to people for the textile forum, because we would like to get it going. And we have, our partners here in the water management forum as well, who I think would be a key part for this conversation. And Ashish has, shared his ID as well. So thank you so much. I think I shall not take up more of your time, because just like we meet people, I think I will get brickbats also if I take any longer. And I appreciate your patience and your time. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.